Greetings, everyone. I am Pete Pardo from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of What's Hot with Sea of Tranquility. We're going to do the full review of the Deep Purple Made in Japan 50th Anniversary box set right now. If you're looking to see all the goodies that are in here and get a load of the packaging and all that, we've already done an unboxing video which aired a couple days ago. So go check that out if you want to see all the extra stuff. Today we're just talking about the music, how it sounds, how it compares to previous releases, all that sort of thing. So 2 videos for this release, unboxing a couple days ago. Go check it out if you haven't to see all the stuff, because there is a lot of stuff in here. This is a very cool release with all sorts of goodies, right? There's booklets and tour programs and posters and all that wonderful stuff, right, that makes Anniversary Edition so cool for the collector. But today it's all about the music. So we've got the 2025 remix of the original album done by Steven Wilson. So there's the Steven Wilson remix. Then, of course, we have all 3 shows. We've got Osaka, Japan, August 15th, 1972. Second show in Osaka, August 16th, 1972. And then the Tokyo show, August 17th, 1972. Of course, what they did originally is they took what they felt were the best performances of all the songs, and that's what Made in Japan became. So this is comprised of recordings from all 3 of these shows. Here now we have all 3 full shows, minus the Encores. That's on a separate disc, but I'll get to it in a second. And these were all remixed by Richard Digby Smith in 2025. So again, here's the difference. Steven Wilson remixed the original album. Richard Digby Smith remixed all 3 performances and the encores and the single edits. And then on the Blu-ray, we have various versions. You've got Dolby Atmos, DTS, stereo, all the 5.1. You got the 3 different versions to listen to of the Steven Wilson 2025 remix, all available on Blu-ray. All right. So again, yeah, it's Dolby Atmos, 5.1 surround sound, DTS HD, stereo remix, master DTS HD, stereo remaster of the 1972. Also, I forgot, so there's 4 actually. You get the remaster of the original 1972 stereo mix. Okay, so but before we get to all this, for many of you, if you've been a fan of this album for as long as I have or longer, I bought the original vinyl of this, my original vinyl of this, probably like in 1979. So that was a long time ago. That's, close to 50 years ago. Not quite, but it's close. I went in 1998 and purchased the Made in Japan remaster with Roger Glover, Ian Pace mix of the original album, which included a second disc of 3 of the encores. Right, so you got the original album with the Glover Pace mix and Black Knight, Speed King, and Lucille. Now, their Black Knight and Speed King were both played twice. I'll tell you exactly when. Trying to keep track of all this stuff is crazy. So basically, on August 15th in Osaka, we got Black Knight and Speed King. On August 16th, we got Black Knight and Lucille. And then August 17th, we got Black Knight and Speed King. And that was the Tokyo show. So here, basically, you got 1 version of each, the one Lucille that was played, plus the best versions of Black Knight and Lucille. This is what I've been listening to now for, a long time. And to me, this basically takes that original album release, the original mix, and just maybe cleans it up a tad. But I've been living with this now for, 25, 26 years. So, and this is as close to the original mix as you can possibly get, right? I've loved this. I love the original. Honestly, if we never got any of this stuff, I'd probably be okay with it, because, there's also this, which came out in the earlier 90s. So these are basically the 3 shows, complete for the most part, except you're missing a couple of the encores, right? But basically, and this is a digital remix. These sound fine too. right? So it's not like the stuff that's in this box set has never before been released. It has. So I've had, this stuff and then the original vinyl, and the original CD forever, right? And I know this album inside and out, backwards and forwards. However, now we can start talking about the new stuff. So let's get to this first. So again, replicating sort of the original album release, but we all know that was not the picture that was on there. So basically that takes, so in this release, I just want to show you where the photograph comes from. So there you have the new front cover of the CD, not of the box set. Right? Box set's a little bit different. That basically gives you, well, maybe a very close replication of that. Right. So Steven Wilson has remixed this. And as you know, I've gone out and read and listened to a lot of people talking about this over the last week or so. Some people hailing it as, you know, the most amazing presentation of Made in Japan ever, and some people are like, it's not that much different. Richie's guitar isn't loud enough in the mix, and blah 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 blah. I don't need anything other than my original versions and all that sort of thing. I get all the arguments. I totally do. So I've listened. I have been immersing myself in all that is Made in Japan over the last like 3-4 days nonstop. And it's just like, I'm probably going to need to take a break from this after the last couple of days. But I will say, with the exception of the opening to Highway Star on here, where Blackmore's guitar, those opening chords, is definitely very subdued. And the first couple times I listened to it, it was very jarring because I'm used to Blackmore coming in and, like, you know, that's what you hear. He's very much even keel with everything else in the mix, which takes a little getting used to. I will say overall throughout all of this album with Steven's remix, Blackmore is probably, he's not buried in the mix. He's not really low in the mix. It's just there's more of an equal playing field now. So this becomes less of a thunderous Richie Blackmore guitar live album, and more of a Deep Purple live album, where you hear everybody really well in the mix. The separation is there. It's all very crystal clear. It's a very, very meticulously done remix where all of a sudden you feel like you're there in the audience. Now, the really cool thing about the Blu-ray is, like, you can actually go on and you can toggle back and forth between the various mixes and different presentations and kind of hear the subtle differences. But what I really like is the fact that you can hear the Steven Wilson 2025 remix and then pop over to the original 72 mix and hear the differences. And it's, I wouldn't say it's like glaring, but there is a much, much more pronounced guitar presence in the mix of the original album, the original presentation. And there is a little bit more of everything is kind of like claustrophobic in the mix, all the different instruments. So like when you're hearing the original mix, you're hearing big guitar, organ, drums and bass, and it's all kind of like colliding together. Steven Wilson's remix separates everything. And it sounds much, much more polished, maybe a little less raw, but all of a sudden you hear all subtle differences and subtle things happening that maybe you hadn't heard before, specifically with Roger Glover's bass, which, you know, I was watching Phil Aston's review of this, and he talked about how now in the new mix you really can hear all the little things that Roger's doing, not just kind of plodding along like it may have sounded on the original mix, but all of a sudden that Rickenbacker bass sounds very clear. That trebly tone of the Rickenbacker really cuts through. You can hear all these cool little things that he's doing that I never, quite frankly, never even noticed before. All the gentle cymbal stuff and drum fills that Ian Pace is doing, and I think John Lord's keyboards, to have an organ specifically, also take on a different presence. Blackmore's still there. He's still the force to be reckoned with here. His solos sound amazing, crystal clear, still fiery and powerful. I think where he's maybe a little bit more subdued in the mix is during the more riffy moments. Specifically also, if you go listen to Smoke on the Water on the original 72 mix, when he plays those opening chords that we all know so well, it's like bold and in your face. And it's just, you know, on the Steven Wilson remix, It's not quite as bold. It's crisper, clearer, but not quite as powerful. I also think too, and this really took me by surprise. So, when I'm listening to, and I listen to this on my home theater system and in my little CD player I have here in the office, I will say that the overall volume level across the entire 2025 remix by Steven Wilson is much lower. I had to really listen to this. I normally keep my volume on most CDs here in the office on 5. I had to raise it to 8 to really kind of hear what was going on. It's very, very low. Get it at a comfortable volume level. You can kind of really hear all the subtle, nuances now that maybe you hadn't heard before. So, but I will say it's mainly during the beginning of Highway Star where I really noticed that the glaring lower in the mix Blackmore. You don't notice it as much across much of the rest of the album. But on Highway Star it is, up until when you get to maybe the guitar solo. So it's a little jarring at first, but I know a lot of people are like, I can't get into this because Blackmore's not as potent in the mix. You don't really notice it as much throughout the rest of the album. It's mostly on Highway Star for me. So for me, I really like the way this sounds. I think, would I prefer this over what I'm used to, the original or the Gill and Glover remix from the 90s? I don't know. It's a different way to listen to this album. And it's definitely a little bit more sophisticated and a little more revealing of all the little subtleties. I really like it, though. I think it's really good. And what I've done is I've already added this to my iPod and to Fire Stick, and I'm to a little flash drive, and I'm going to play this in the car, my car system, and hear how that sounds, with everything kind of on top of me and surrounding me or in the ears directly. So very, very good. Very, very good. Different for sure. And for those who argue, well, I'm happy with the original mix, do I need to hear this? Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't. I'm totally fine with that argument as well, because I'm a Blackmore guy. I like to hear Richie loud and bold on Made in Japan, and there's nothing wrong with that. But as an alternate, pretty cool, right? So then let's move on. So we got Made in Japan, Osaka, the first night, August 15th. Okay. What's really cool about listening to these full shows is how quickly you can figure out which are the versions of the songs that made it onto the actual live album. And it's instantaneous. If you know this album really, really well, as you should, you know exactly which versions were picked. And then when you listen to the alternate versions that didn't make the actual live album, sometimes you can hear why. They're not quite as energetic, or there's some mistakes here and there, because there's mistakes. You hear mistakes all over the place on some of these, and it's fine, right? But they're all still cool, right? But there is some very interesting things to hear, some subtle differences. Richie's taken different solo journeys on a couple of the Child in Time. Some of John Lord's keyboards are a little different. Ian sings things a little bit different at times. The in-between song banter with Ian and the audience, Ian making introductions and casual comments and things, which you don't really get on the original album. That's all here, so you get all that kind of fun stuff in between. So I will say probably for me, I'm trying to think of what is ultimately my favorite night overall. So, and again, in some cases, there is, like I said, some little differences in the way, some of the, Space Truckin' is a little bit different in length than some of them, and the solos are definitely differently. I think the Tokyo gig is really, really good, but the Osakas are spectacular as well. So, overall, did they pick out the best versions of all the songs? They did. But there's great stuff to be had and heard across all of these. It's just amazing how different they can make a song we've heard a million times in Smoke on the Water. You listen to the three versions and okay, there's differences in each one of them. Richie plays the riff maybe a little bit different one time. The solo is always going to be different. Whatever. On to the encores and the single edits. So interestingly enough, there's a glaring difference in some of the way these songs are performed. For me, the Osaka night number 1, Black Knight and Speed King, not great. There's some flubs. They sound a little off. The recording isn't as spectacular. And then I do want to make mention of Martin Birch, who, of course, was the producer and engineer on the original live albums, and it's a fantastic job. That should be a given. But yeah, I do want to make sure I mention. On the second night in Osaka, Black Knight is tremendous. And Lucille, while fun, is probably not really needed. It is fun. It takes them a while to kind of, they're tuning, warming up, doing some things, and then they blast into it. It's pretty energetic. It's fun. But Black Knight on night 2 is really good. And I think both on the Tokyo show, I think Black Knight and Speed King are both tremendous. Really, really tremendous. Especially Black Knight. And then you got the single edits, right? So you got a German edit of Black Knight, you've got a Mexican single edit of Space Truck, and then a U.S. the live version of Smoke on the Water, right? So yeah. But if you go and you now compare all this stuff, so from Highway, so on the regular album, Highway Star is taken from night 2 of Osaka. Child in Time is taken from night 2 from Osaka. Smoke on the Water is taken from night 1 of Osaka. The Mule is taken from Tokyo. Strange Kind of Woman taken from Osaka, night 2. Lazy taken from Tokyo. And Space Truckin' taken from Osaka. So, me saying Osaka might be the best night, hard, or saying that Tokyo might be the best night, hard to say because most of the album was taken from the Osaka stuff, but there's something about the Tokyo vibe that I really like. But again, like I said, they did grab the best versions of all these songs. But just kind of cool to now compare and go and listen and say, all right, well, what do I think about the versions that, never made it to the original album? But like I said, if you had this, you already kind of know all this stuff. But so very, very cool. And like I mentioned, the Blu-ray is very, very nice. Like I said, when you put it on, you get a nice menu. It has all of the tracks from the original album, from the live album. And then you can pick whether you want DTS stereo or surround sound or Dolby Atmos. And then at the bottom, you have the option to go listen to the original 72 mix. So you can actually go pop on one of the songs and go listen to the remaster or the remix by Steven Wilson in whichever format you like, and then pop over to the 72 and listen to the original mix and see if you can hear, after you listen to one after the other, and hear some of the differences. It's pretty much night and day. It really is. And again, whether that's good or bad, better or worse, that all depends on the individual. So yeah, there you have it. That is my kind of breakdown and review of all of this stuff. And as you can imagine, if you're someone at home who's watching, who's trying to figure this all out and decide what you think of all this, it's a lot of listening. It's a lot of listening to the same songs, just different nights, different presentations, different mixes, and all that sort of thing. But ultimately, a cool exercise that I think I've really enjoyed. But of course, now I'm going to need to take a break from Made in Japan for a bit because I've heard Smoke on the Water and Child in Time and Highway Star and Strange Kind of Woman and Lazy and The Mule and Space Truck and so many times over the last few days. It's just crazy. But what's cool about a band like this is that they change things up every night. Some people don't like all the jamming and the fact that some of these songs sounds different from night to night. But that was the 70s. That was live concerts. That was live albums, right? They expand on the original studio versions, make them cooler, let the band solo and play some improvs and do things like that. So that's what it was all about. So yeah. So as far as me rating this set, I mean, it's made in Japan, for crying out loud, right? And the cool thing is, it's still the same album. It's just presented a little bit differently. So for me, this is always going to be a 5 out of 5 star live album. It's one of my favorite live albums of all time. Has been for many years. It still is. This is cool for the collector, for the uber fan, right? If you're a Deep Purple nerd, you got to have this. I love it, right? It's like I said. Am I gonna get rid of these or stop listening to these? No, I'm not. But for an alternate of those, this is very, very cool. I think Steven Wilson has done a dynamite job here, and I think I keep forgetting his name. The other guy, Richard Digby Smith, also has done a fine job. So how do these sound? The other ones, I think the mixes are very cool. They're very good. So yeah, overall, job well done. I enjoy this. I'm glad I have it, and curious to hear what you people think about how it sounds once you've had a chance to digest it all and compare to the originals and all that sort of thing. So thanks for watching. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit the like button before you leave. Also down below, the links to all of our stuff, merch page, Cameo, membership, Ko-Fi. Thanks for all your support. It's greatly appreciated. And we'll see you soon here with more stuff. Long live Deep Purple. Long live the greatest live album of all time, made in Japan. And we'll see you soon here with more stuff. I'm Pete Pardo. Take care. Bye-bye.